Thanks, Chair, and thanks to all our witnesses for coming in this morning. And obviously, there's a huge challenge around home care at the moment. There always has been. I was a former home care worker for a good period of my time before I got elected to the Dáil. So I kind of have an insight into relation to how, how home care workers, are in that setting, and it's a very rewarding job, and can be very challenging in some cases. Just in relation to a number of very kind of quick fire questions, in relation to travel time and travel expenses, how much extra costs would that bring on to the provider? And then obviously that would then be given then to the worker. So in relation to costs, what are we talking percentage wise in relation to, say, like what hourly rate the HSE will give to the private provider?
Who wants to come in on that?
Well, I know as a provider ourselves, as well as being a lobbying organisation, our hourly rate would be around $13.50. So for travel, you would be talking about either half an hour travel or an hour travel. So you could be talking about that same rate again for that hour. So it could be a considerable cost. But at the same time, as we mentioned, the HSE are providing that for their workers. So it would depend, I presume. Again, I would imagine they would work it based on mileage rather than, if they work it like that, rather than an hourly cost. Then it would depend on how far the person is travelling and how long it's taken them to travel.
Okay.
Joseph might answer from the private sector.
Joseph?
Yeah, I think it would be similar, but it would obviously depend whether it was travel in an urban area, which typically is more like 15, 20 minutes, than in a rural area, which can be an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on where the care is being asked to be delivered. Okay.
And Joseph, you may be able to answer this question. In relation to home care overall in the state, what percentage is being provided now by the private sector?
So of the HSE commissioned care, around 30 to 40% is delivered by private agencies, around 50% is delivered by the HSE itself.
Right. So 50% HSE directly?
Yes.
Sorry, there's a bell going in the background here. And the other, what was the other percentage?
So around 50% HSE, probably around 30 to 40% private, and then 10 to 20 non-profit, depending. I'm not sure the exact figures right now.
Right. I know you mentioned something about unregulated kind of factors in home care. Is that prevalent, in your opinion?
I think that was Age Action that raised that point. They might want to come in.
Yeah.
Sorry, the question about unregulated, I think the issue here is in the broader care picture that there's a lot of informal care, that people are simply employed directly to work in somebody's home. So they're not necessarily working for an agency at all, even a non-profit. So that you have that end of the spectrum in terms of the employment relationship where there is no regulation, there's no supervision. Simply a person has directly employed someone to work as carer in their home, and there's a need for the new care. You know, if we're going to have a statutory home care system which provides perhaps funding, how is that going to interact with that level of with the informal care that goes on, and to make sure that that's regularised and regulated?
Okay. And just in relation to my final questions, in relation to retention of staff, and obviously when there is kind of hemorrhaging of staff, it's for a number of reasons. Mainly to do with pay. There's other factors as well, but I think pay can be a major factor. So at the moment, just according to the HCCI statement, they aspire to providing their workers with a living wage. The living wage at the moment is $12.90. So in relation to providing, what is the hourly rate in relation to the majority of the HCCI members in relation to their workers?
So the average wage amongst our members is around $12.70 an hour.
$12.70, so just below the living wage.
Yeah, it's at or just below.
Okay, and obviously you aspire to to make that greater over.
I would like to see the living wage included as the minimum rate of pay in the sector.
Right, and what could be the minimum hourly rate? Obviously, if it's below 12.70, but that's possible, obviously.
The minimum we've recorded is 11.93 amongst our members.
Okay, and obviously the private providers are, they're getting multiples of that. Now, obviously, there's overhead costs. I understand that, but there's a whole plethora of private providers, and they're doing quite well. And I think the question mark is that why are staff that are kind of very motivated by the work that they do? It's a very responsible position, but why are they going out of the sector? And it's usually down paying conditions, and I think that's obviously the private sector has to look at that very, very importantly, because otherwise staff will just won't retain staff, and you'll have this situation, in the perpetual situation in relation to keeping staff.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if someone else wants to come in or if that's for me to answer.
Okay, I think it's more of a statement you're making there, Gino, as well, and I think some of the opening statements this morning were also talking in terms of the fact that the HSE, the main funding agency, was recruiting staff, and how unfair that system is as well.